About 2 weeks after we told our daughter, our son was only about a year at the time, that we were getting a divorce, mommy and daddy would be living in separate houses, we noticed some anxiety along with some pretty dramatic behavior and personality changes. A lot of random fears and separation anxiety started popping up. And I just had this really big internal moment of fear, guilt, panic. I started questioning my decisions. I really worried and strongly believed at that moment that I was putting my kids through a trauma and that I was going to screw them up developmentally and emotionally. It kind of sent me down a little bit of a negative spiral. I practiced meditation pretty regularly, and really shortly after that, I had this thought during one of my meditations, and just this real calm washed over me that it was a beautiful realization that I was providing them and myself with this amazing opportunity to face challenges together, learn, grow, and develop lifelong coping skills. The truth is that life is ever changing and ever evolving, and it's not what you go through that makes you who you are, but how you go through it. Maintaining that perspective and helping my kids understand that perspective, I hold and choose optimism ultimately. And that's how I continue to look at every twist and turn, because believe me, there are many. Divorce is just the beginning. Co-parenting is the lifelong journey, to be honest. I do have one funny little story to tell. So, in lieu of, you never know what they're picking up on or how they're perceiving what is taking place. So, this is maybe a year after the divorce. Mom and dad are living separate. Dad's in a new relationship. And the kids were playing outside with a couple of dolls. And my daughter decided that they were in love and the dolls were going to get married. And so I said to myself, well, let's see how this one plays out. So after a little while, they get married. Mommy has to go to work now, and she's going to make money to buy all the things, right? So she comes home from work, and she then proceeds to tell her doll husband that she wants a divorce because she is independent and likes her freedom. And then she looks at me and says, right, mommy? So I said, that's right, honey. That's right. And, so you just never know, all these worries that I have. And in the end, she sees her mom just living her life. She's happy and has all the freedom and independence she could ever ask for. So yeah, you just never know what they're picking up on and how they perceive the situation. So that gave me a nice laugh and kind of like a proud mom moment.
Hello, this is Don.
And Gina.
With Focused Healthy Family. And this is podcast number 25. We're talking with Pam today, and we're talking about what it's like to go through a collaborative divorce settlement and about co-parenting. But before we get into that, let's hear from our sponsor.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Q Sciences. Don and I discovered that the supplements we were taking and giving to our children were not being absorbed properly. I was very excited when I found Q Sciences. I was impressed with the quality of the products and that they provide maximum absorption. They have a variety of products, including a Q Max product, which is a combination of 3 products, including vitamins, minerals, and a probiotic. They also have hemp oil, a vitamin B12 spray, a sleep spray, and kids products. I've really seen a difference in how these products are improving how I feel, improving my mental health, and I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. Or you can find a link on the front page of the focusedhealthyfamily.com website.
And stop throwing your money away on supplements that don't work and use a quality product like Q Sciences.
And we're back. And today's podcast, we're talking with Pam. She has been divorced about a year and a half now. She has 2 kids, a 7-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. She's 41 years old. She's not remarried, and she has her own salon. She's a hairstylist. So Pam, welcome, and thank you so much for coming here and talking about this experience with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
Apologize to our listeners. Don and I are at different locations, and so it's a little challenging. I wanted to just, I appreciate your story, Pam. I got a kick out of just the whole interaction that your daughter role played with her dolls, and our kids do pick up on things. So that was fun just to hear that perspective.
Oh, thank you.
So, one of the reasons you came here to tell your story was because you're divorced, but you went through a divorce differently than the norm, I guess, or however you want to put it. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually had never even heard of the idea of mediation. You think divorce and you think this huge dramatic ordeal and just complicated and lawyers and battles, right? And we had a therapist of mine actually had recommended mediation and gave me Lori's number. And almost as soon as we reached out to her, we realized it was really the best decision we could have ever made. And frequently throughout the experience, we just both, my ex-husband and I, really felt like, wow, this could have gotten so messy. And being able to work with Lori kept us really focused on working as a team and making choices to put our kids' needs first. And kind of giving us this middle ground where we could come together and work through things with a third party observing, because things, obviously you get divorced for a reason, and things can get a little messy and complicated when you're having miscommunication and back and forth. So it was just really great being able to have the opportunity and even the information. I feel like that's not probably talked about enough, but how beneficial the mediation process was for us and for a smooth transition.
So just a short question is so it did not end up in court at all. With mediation, you don't end up in court. Is that correct?
In our case, we had our one court date, which finalized after all the papers were signed. There was the official court hearing, but everything else was dealt through mediation sessions with Lori. We worked through all the finances, all the logistics, and she had such great ideas and plans, especially for financially how we're going to move forward. So we did not work with a lawyer except for actually filing divorce paperwork through court.
And when you mentioned Lori, that's Lori Grover, who, in fact, we did a podcast on, and she'll probably be as we talk now, and as this comes up, she'll have already been put up on the podcast the week before this. So. That's wonderful to talk about her so kindly, because it sounds like she does some great stuff.
Yeah, she really does. And we continue to use her as support when things come up with co-parenting, because things change and evolve, and things you agree on in your mediation maybe don't make sense 2 years down the road. And so we've been able to continuously revisit sessions with Lori to help us work through some of the new decisions that need to be made.
And was it tough to get Charlie? Your ex is Charlie, is that correct?
So my ex-husband's name, he goes by Eli.
Eli, excuse me. I apologize.
His name is Charles, but he goes by Eli.
Was it hard to convince him? Was he all on board with going through mediation?
Yeah, he 100% was on board. We never had a volatile relationship at all. We just grew in different directions and saw things differently. And but all in all, we were really supportive of each other, finding a better life for ourselves. And he was very agreeable about the process.
Yeah, I want to thank you, for being here. Don and I had never been divorced, and our parents never were divorced, so we really are outside of this realm. And so being able to hear from parents having gone through this experience, we really appreciate you being here. And like you, we had never heard of mediation either. through divorce. And so that was very enlightening when we spoke with Lori. And I'm curious how you came to find out about that in your process.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm so grateful. I had been working with a life coach for years on and off. And when I knew divorce was on the table, I spoke with her and really wanted to just check balance myself and make sure I wasn't making an irrational decision. She'd seen me through years of change and transition. And, she was very supportive of the decision and thought that mediation might be a really great fit for the two of us. So it was actually recommended to me from a life coach I had. And I'm so grateful for that, because like you said, I really had no idea it could be that supportive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. When we talked with both the lawyer and Lori, just the fact that it could be a collaborative process, just like other aspects of parenting, right? Working together, coming to shared decisions about things. One of them mentioned that, the family continues, it just looks very differently through divorce.
Exactly. Yeah. The story doesn't end with the court date. It continues.
Well, that's kind of interesting. You bring up the idea of family. How do you shape family in this scenario? I mean, we think in the norm as family as mom, dad, kids, living in one house kind of thing. This is very different now for you. So is there a different definition for family for you with how you've gone through it?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good topic and really interesting you bring that up, because, that is a perspective he and I had originally viewed. And, when new people come into the picture, the story changes, and that's just a fact. And so that was probably the really first biggest struggle for me, is letting go of this initial vision that we were always going to be a family and the family was going to grow. I envisioned us sitting down at family dinners once a month on Sunday with his new partner, my new partner, more kids, bigger and better. And new partners come into the picture and don't envision that same vision, and things change. So yeah, it was told to me pretty early on that was not the vision going forward. And that was a pretty big hit for me. So again, like with my whole process of this is things change. Things are not easy. They're going to ebb and flow, but finding a way to keep the balance within yourself and continuously finding the new normal. My ex-husband and I constantly try to keep a positive communication between us. We also work with a child therapist together to help us with parenting systems and help keep us on the same page with your house and my house. Because his family is evolving and he has more children in his new household. And it's really been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been difficult to go through this transition. But I believe at every step, if you're continuously just taking a step back and kind of resetting and allowing yourself to let go of the vision of what you thought it was going to look like. And, I just keep coming back to, all right, well, what are we right now? And how can this look the most supportive? I anticipate that there's going to be more of this, that was the first big shift for me. But as far as I talk about it with the kids, I call us a family. I love this family. We're a great family. We just continuously talk about that. And, I always speak positively about him with the kids. And here and there, we'll have little group activities where it is the four of us together again, the kids, myself, and my ex. But yeah, that family vision and that idea of family really takes a transition on. And I think it's a little unpredictable. You never know what it's going to do.
Just as parenting is, you said a very important, profound thing there about, just accepting the family, the situation you have, and not what you expected it to be. And parenting is the same way. We got to parent the child we have, not the child we thought that we would have. And so I see those things going hand in hand. And it's awesome that you had that like coach and your work with meditation. These are all things Don and I are very familiar with, and how much that helps that whole situation, right? Because you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your kids. I'm just really curious from a kid's perspective, as the mom, your kids are very young, what you saw in them through the changes.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was interesting because it really would kind of ping pong back and forth between the two of them. So like I said, my daughter was around 5 or 6 and my son was just around 2. So for her, the initial conversation, it went from, oh my God, this is exciting. We get a new house. Daddy's going to have a different house. Like, this is new, different, exciting, to all of a sudden, like, whoa, again, like I said, like 2 weeks later, her whole world was pulled out from underneath her. Her whole belief of what life and existence looks like was taken away. And she went through a really difficult time, making an adjustment to this new understanding of what life was going to look like. So for her, there was a lot of anticipatory anxiety and stress leading up to the idea of what was going to happen and a lot of the unknowns. Whereas my son, obviously, we would talk about it in front of him and with him. And his real struggles came, Dad got the new house and we did maybe a week of split parenting. We have a pretty great schedule organized where it's like 50-50 for the most part. And, the first week it was like, oh, this is cool. And then my son was like, I am not feeling this. He's still a baby at this time and they're very mom attached, and really started going through some struggles as far as leaving me. And I would say the most difficult stage, especially for my ex, not necessarily for me, but what the bedtime routine. Mom tends to be more of like the home space and the nurturer, and at least in our family dynamic, that's what it was. And that was really, really difficult for them and for him to kind of navigate through. Yeah, so they have had their ebbs and flows, and I can tell you, up until right now, my ex-husband's living situation just changed a couple months ago, and there was another huge upheaval with their behaviors, probably even worse than the divorce. A lot of yelling and outbursts, and you can just see the emotional turmoil bubbling under the surface, that any little thing. So what I always try to do is validate the feeling that they're feeling, kind of help them understand that I understand right now you're feeling really frustrated and you're a little stressed out. There's a lot of change going on, but we need to talk about things. This isn't how we yell. We don't yell at each other. This isn't how we speak to each other. We talk as a family. And that's kind of like a foundation I lay and am always come back to, is families talk. We talk about stuff. We don't just yell or run away. So yeah, I won't sugarcoat it. It's not been easy, but there are magic moments. I think with any parenting, you have your really difficult struggles, and then you have those magic moments where you just keep taking deep breaths and going, oh my God, I can't believe how good this is all going. Everybody's getting along. Everything's running smoothly. So I just try to really relish in those moments. But yeah, it has been difficult for them, but I do truly believe now that they're becoming better, more equipped people to handle struggles and difficulties in life, because it's being ingrained at such a young age.
Yeah.
Well, in thinking about that, and it just kind of brings up some thought, with a baby, I think the mother side of that, and I'm talking, Gina could probably talk better at this, but the mothering side of that, it's got to be kind of hard to flex the time, especially sleep time, if, I don't know, like nursing and things like that, how that plays out. That had to be very difficult. Were you able to flex the time in a different way it might not turn out to be 50-50 for the youngest one. I don't know if that's the right way to ask that.
Yeah, sure. I said to anybody who asked me when I got divorced, I said, I couldn't have done it a day sooner, and I couldn't have waited a day longer. When we decided it was the right moment, and that was a huge part for me. I wasn't nursing anymore. So, he was already on solids and still bottles, but really weaning off the bottles as well. So we were in a really great situation where he didn't necessarily physically depend on me so much anymore. So I felt a little bit more at ease making the decision when we did. And one of our big decisions was to, for the most part, keep the kids together as often as possible. So they were always a consistent within all the inconsistencies. One little piece that I'd like to throw out there too, that I've gotten a lot of parents who have been like, wow, that's a great idea. And I actually think I might do that in my family. He and I had come up with a system where every other Sunday, he would take them in the afternoon. I had them in the morning, he had them in the afternoon, but every other Sunday we would each take one, so we could spend that undivided attention, because that is a challenge. And I would say more challenging than I anticipated, being a single parent in a home, dividing your attention between two children with two very different needs and very different age brackets. So having that once every other week, alone time with each one was really helpful. But aside from that, we really tried to keep it, it's 3 days with him, 3 days with me. I do get one extra night with them to break up the 3 days with him, just because again, being so young, it was really challenging for them. But we really tried to keep them together and let them be their support system for each other.
That makes a lot of sense, Pam. And I love that you also incorporate that one-on-one time, because I know Don and I have done that with our kids. We have 3, and the importance of giving them that individual time. And so that you, as both parents, you and your ex-husband get to do that with the kids. That makes a lot of sense to me. And that consistency for them, of them being together. I know when Don and I set up a will, that's one thing I always thought about. If something happened to us, I'd want my kids, to be together, that they have that support of each other. So I just think that's beautiful, the arrangements you have. And obviously it's not always going smoothly or perfect, but it sounds, given the situation, it's, probably the best for the kids for sure. And since our podcast is all about parenting and the effects on children, you talked about validating feelings. Don and I do parenting workshops, and that's number one. The first thing that comes first is validating feelings. I hear that you're this, recognizing it. And then the problem is, this is what we've got to work out. This is what we've got to do or manage. So it is, like you said, it's a skill we teach our kids, no matter what the struggle happens to be. For us, we've had kids with severe anxiety and other issues, and going through that experience, it's a learning experience for the whole family. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's one day at a time, just like the typical nuclear family, right? It's there are ebbs and flows and challenges, no matter what your family looks like.
Yeah, we definitely know those. And I take it that your ex lives close, so you don't have any issues with having out of state or anything like that.
Yeah, we're really fortunate in that, so technically right now he is living out of state, but it's Massachusetts. It's right next door. But that was something that we actually put in the mediation, which, works for some people and really wouldn't work for other people. But for us, it was important that the kids remain at the school they're at. We both feel really strongly about the school. It's very supportive. And we didn't want their school pickup and drop offs to be very disrupted. So it was in the mediation that we wouldn't live without, outside of, I think we agreed 30 minutes of school so that pickup and drop offs would never be that difficult. So I live about 20 minutes from the school. So with that, it kind of keeps us in a little bit of a closer radius for each other. And again, we've had to adjust with his recent move. We've had to adjust pickup and drop offs and who's doing it, where we're doing it, how we're doing it, who's doing the school drop offs. So, there's constant reevaluations. Another point I'd like to bring out, which I had only heard about through another divorced mom who was having a really toxic divorce. And even though this wasn't a toxic situation, there were some challenges and struggles and miscommunications that were taking place. And so I actually brought in the idea, and it's worked really well for us, for what's called a parenting app. It's called, the one that we use is Our Family System. It's Our Family Wizard, OFW. And it's a parenting app where you can put all the joint scheduling information in there, and all of your communications are logged and tracked. It's more of like an email kind of format. So then at any point, if a lawyer or a therapist needs to review a message or a discrepancy, they have access to it. But it's just been really helpful for he and I to keep the conversations productive and streamlined with functionality versus having any kind of unnecessary muddiness mixed into it. So it's been really helpful too with scheduling stuff where, well, I had this in my calendar. Yeah, but I have this in my calendar. Well, we can both say that what we believe is the right fact, and it's our story, right? But everybody has their own story. So if it's in this one Family Wizard, Our Family Wizard app, this is the fact, and this is what we go off of. And if it's not logged, if there's a discrepancy of who has the kids, well, we agreed this, but I thought it was that. Well, if it's not in writing in the app, then it essentially doesn't exist, right? So it's been really helpful keeping both of us held accountable for organization and communication.
Well, and I will mention to our audience, I will make sure to put that into, in fact, I may tie it into all the different podcasts on this series, because that sounds wonderful. Because what I'm gathering from this is that, communication is a total key here to making this work well. And I really liked when you talked in the original story, how you respond to things is so important. And I have found that over and over in life itself, how you respond to it is the key to how things happen. So that I will make sure to get that up there. And is there any other points that you'd like to get, any other message that you'd like to get out to the audience about this?
Yeah, I would say probably my final and big advice is don't be afraid to reach out for help. He and I went down a slippery slope of miscommunication and maybe even some lack of communication. It became very transactional, and we really started getting so far from where we believed we would be or where we originally set an intention to be. And it was about 9 months of some really muddy communication. And, at that point, we reached out to Lori and we had some sessions with her. And then we reached out to the child therapist who was helping coach us through the challenges with the child's behavior through the onset of divorce. There are professionals out there who have worked with exactly the type of families, whatever your family looks like, they've seen it and they know how to coach you through it. And that was a big relief for me when we talked to Lori after, 9 months of a little bit of a hairy interaction. She said, you know what, guys, this is normal. This is part of it. This is what I expect to see happen. But what I admire is that you guys continue to reach out for the support to rebuild that communication. And so don't be afraid to get help. Don't be afraid to ask the professionals. You're not the only one going through this. There's been hundreds of other families having the same struggles. So there are people out there that can help, and it doesn't have to be painful. It's not always easy, but it doesn't have to be painful. There is a more productive, positive way to do it.
Thank you. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that. Again, hearing from actual parents going through these situations, Don and I cannot speak on this really at all, right? Not having any of this experience. And asking for help, that's a big thing with parenting in general, right? Be it professional help or help with childcare and other things. So thank you so much, Pam, for being here, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable to let other people know what you've been through and the things that have worked for you, and the realness of it, right? It's despite the efforts and mediation and communication, there's going to be messy periods in it. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And we're glad you've been here. We want to encourage our listeners to check out the other podcasts where we interview Lori, the mediator, as well as Ashley Nicole, who is a collaborative lawyer. And the next podcast will be with Don Hubin, and we'll be talking more about that, about shared parenting and this experience. It's wanting to change how divorce is looked at, and that there is a different way. I think, the media portrays the ugly side, I guess, for the most part, of divorce, and that remembering that the kids' lives matter. I love how your focus was that each of you live within 30 minutes of the school, right? Not that you had to be close to each other, but that it centers around the kids and their needs and them being together. So thank you. It's great information, and we have enjoyed talking with you today.
No, thank you so much. And it was able to get some of the information out to others, because it really has been life-changing for us.
So that's our podcast for today. We thank you all for being here with us. You can learn more about these information resources that we've shared. You can check out more about Don and I and the work we do working with parents at FocusHealthyFamily.com. Look at our workshops and the one-on-one coaching we do. You can follow us on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family. You can follow me on Instagram at Gina at Focused Healthy Family. And remember, how you speak to your kids shapes their future.